Hello, and welcome to How to Paint a Dark Eldar Wrack. Here's your paint list. The model was first primed gray, then the lower half was painted with black primer. Now we're just taking the airbrush and base coating the lower cloth there with a mix of black and scarlet red. Now we add a little bit more scarlet red to the mix, and for this, on the back side, I concentrate the highlight towards the bottom of the cloth, and on the front, I get the left leg, the top front part of his thigh there. I hit that on the high spot, and then on the front of the right leg, I hit the lower area. Alright, now we're going to do like a dusty highlight using khaki, and I thin this about 5 parts water to 1 part paint. See, it's very watery, and you want to hold it in the light and hit it with bursts from the airbrush and let that burst completely dry before you put on another, because it's a very drastic change. But if it goes a little too bright, you can always take the base color and thin that down like 10 parts to 1 and kind of feather the highlight back down. Now to add some dirt blotches, I took that same mix I had in my palette, that's like 5 parts water to 1 part khaki, and took a blister sponge and dabbed it all around the bottom of this cloth there, or leather, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Now we're going to take khaki and do all the edge highlighting on the cloth. And for a brighter edge highlight on the cloth, we'll use a mixture of khaki and ivory. Now I re-base coat all the black areas with black primer. Silly putty time now. We're going to go ahead and mask off the lower cloth area and your mid area where you don't have to get too critical with. Is you basically want to get it as close to the skin as possible, but just to be safe, you can leave a little bit of his little corset or whatever that he's wearing around the stomach. You can leave that showing because we can rebase coat that black really easy. Alright, now we use heavy skin tone for the base of the skin. Now the first highlight of the skin is done with bone white. Now you might think, what's the point of this? Because we're going to put a really dark, like bloody wash over this. Does this even matter? I don't know. If I was painting an army of these guys and I was doing a bunch, it might merit some testing, you know, but I think it'll matter. And then we'll bring all the muscle striations out with a dry brush of ivory. I silly puttied off the skin, and now we can work on this bone thing sticking out of his back. After the beastie brown, we will go ahead and use leather brown for the first highlight. Then we'll use a mixture of ivory and leather brown for the final airbrush highlight. Now we're going to airbrush some blue shade. I think I saw some blue in the shading on the box art, and that's why I decided to use this. Alright, now we'll get all the edges here with ivory. Alright, time to get his little corset thing and clean that up with some black primer. Alright, on to the blood mixture. We're going to use black ink from Speedball, and we're going to use 2 of the Minotaur Ghost Tints, Orange and Fresh Blood. So first start off with a bunch of the red, a little bit of orange, and I actually added too much black ink. So what I'm doing here is putting on some of the darker color, and if it's a little too dark and I need to bring some of the red back, I have the pure Fresh Blood Ghost Tint in the little top there. And it's just a matter of going back and forth while you're applying it, and if you need a little bit more red, just grab a little bit more pure red. You might want to try this with normal inks instead of ghost tints, because I would suggest leaving ghost tints to dry for 24 hours before you matte coat and continue painting, which is what I did here. Alright, Periscopes was the choice for the first highlight on the black leather areas. The next highlight up is going to be a mixture of 2 parts periscopes and 1 part ivory. The final highlight on all the black leather areas is going to be pure ivory. For the first airbrush part of his mask, we are going to use periscopes. The second highlight on the mask is going to be sunny skin tone. Now, just like khaki we did on the cloth area, sunny skin tone is thinned about 10 parts water to 1 part paint. And you want to do it in bursts, and you could use the air from the airbrush to help dry the layers, but just little by little. And I kind of overdo it, and we have to blend it in, but you'll see that. Okay, since I got a little crazy with the highlight, we have to knock it back. And for this, I chose to use Blue Shade, which is one of Vallejo's washes. And we're just going from the shadow area and kind of chasing that highlight back up to where it needs to be. And then flipping the mask and doing the same on the other side. I wanted the shadow to go to straight black, and that's exactly what we're doing here. I'm going to use Speedball Black ink in the airbrush, and I don't think I diluted it really. Now, I thought it would be a great idea to come back with sunny skin tone and bring some of the striations out in the muscle. But then he looked like bacon, which isn't bad. You know, I like bacon. But for this, I didn't really want him to look that way. So after we do all the highlighting, we'll end up coming back and doing just a straight red ghost tint wash. Okay, so for this tutorial, I decided to go crazy and do a non-metallic part of this tutorial. And instead of me trying to make paint tags to explain things, I just wanted to show the palette and the whole process of having like 5 colors, mixing these colors on the palette, and then going to the model and going back and forth. This is a very basic way of wet blending and just blending in general, and you can spend hours going back and forth, and you'll see me lay on a layer, put on a highlight, and it looks way too rough, come back with a mid-tone and then a shadow, and then blend it back and forth. But I did my usual. I sped up the video, but I left everything intact so you can see it from start to finish. So again, I apologize, it's not the best blending in the world, but I think it gets the point across. Okay, I forgot to film that second wash to cover up the bacon skin that was just using Ghost Tint Fresh Blood over all the skin, just to bring it back to being more Hellraiser-like. And here we're just making some shadows for the little tubes and stuff on his back, the little metal areas, and those were just base coated with Codex Gray or Cold Gray. Alright, time to give these little metal vials on his back an even more basic non-metallic metal, and we're going to use Stonewall Gray. So here you're just working on the first highlight, and then immediately after this we'll just use pure white to make the light glint. Alright, now we're going to do our extreme highlights using white primer. Now we need to put some green stuff into our vials here. So I'm using a mix of light livery green and goblin green. Now we need to create an edge highlight for that liquid, so we're going to use light livery green and white primer. And to add some saturation and pull all those colors together, we'll use green ink over the whole vial section. I decided to paint the little spike things that are poking out of his forearms to look kind of like claws, so we use a mixture of heavy skin tone and ivory for the base color. Then we'll use ivory for the highlight. This is some Daler Rowney burnt umber ink thinned into some dead flat varnish, and I use that sometimes when I need the wash or whatever it is to dry fairly quickly. Like if you use Future, you really don't want to paint over right away because the paint can crack, kind of like we did in the Mortis Engine video. Now to bring the highlight back, we'll use ivory again. And that's pretty much it. I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Share it around to all your Dark Eldar friends. And I'll see you in the next video.